Hello dear students of class 6, welcome back to our English class with Miss Vivakunyoveli as your tutor. And today we are going to continue the same story that we have already started in our previous class, that is an Indian American woman in space, Kalpana Chawla. For those of you who have missed it, it's in chapter 4 and you will find that in page number 48. I'm saying page number 48 because we are already into halfway, okay? For the ones who have missed, I want you to get into your book and then start reading the early part of the story for you to have a better understanding of what we are discussing about. I will just give a quick recap of what we did in the previous class. We have discussed about Kalpana Chawla, who was an Indian American. That means born in India and later she took the citizenship of America. So that is why we call it Indian American woman, okay? She got the citizenship of USA. That is the reason why. And her citizenship was by naturalization. Yes, naturalization citizenship is obtaining by passing certain criteria or through legal means. Okay, so she was not an American by birth. All of us, we are Indians because we are Indian by birth, right? We all are Indian by birth, but for her, she was not an American by birth. And later on, she also married an American, okay, who was also a pilot instructor. We have discussed about so many things. And we also learned that she was the first Indian American woman to go into space for researches. We know that when this lady finally met an accident, there were 7 crew members on board. That is what we have been discussing, right? And I've even shown you the pictures of Kalpana Chawla, but in order to recapitulate, I will show you more. Yes, this was the lady that we were discussing in our previous class. And by her looks, we can also make out that she was an Indian by birth, but took the citizenship of USA. And you see the flag of USA here, right? You see the flag of USA because she had already become a US citizen. Before getting into this, we first discussed about how she went into space. She also went for engineering. Her parents supported her. But when she wanted to go for masters in her studies, her father was against her plan. Okay, but against her father's wishes, she went abroad. Some of you may take that as a bad example, but I'm saying when you have a plan, sometimes your parents may not understand when you grow up, so you also have to go against them. But that does not mean you go against your father or your mother at this age. We are still young, you are still in class 6, so whatever your parents decide for you is always the best. Don't start thinking that if Kalpana Chawla can take a decision like that, I should also take a decision like that. When you have to choose your career, that's a different thing, okay? When you want to become a doctor and your father wants you to be an engineer, in that case, you know what your interest is. So you can always go for your choice. But at this age, you should not take inspiration from negative inspiration like this, okay? Because you have not reached an age where you are matured enough to take a decision of your own, okay? She went to US and also she obtained PhD. She finished her training in pilot, okay? Not only that, after that she also went for further research and finally she had become a trainer, okay? A teacher for an astronaut. And in order to get that, it is not easy. To become an astronaut itself is very difficult, and she not only became an astronaut, but she became a teacher. She was given the opportunity by NASA to train another astronaut. That means she has the qualities and the capacity to teach a person. And we cannot just be teaching a person without having good knowledge of it, isn't it? And her first space mission in the space shuttle is 15 days, 16 hours, and 34 minutes in Colombia. I repeat, 15 days. 15 days, 16 hours, and 34 minutes in space. Can you imagine that? If you were going on a car for one day, that too you feel tired. But they were in space. If it was a person who is not very strong or very confident, they will lose their heart. They would just be wondering what would happen next. What would happen next? It is something that we all would be wondering. But for her, okay, not only her, but for the team, they had to spend 15 days. And that was the first mission. It is not a repeated mission, okay? For the first time, when she went to space, she stayed on space for 15 days, 16 hours and 34 minutes. So you can imagine the courage that she had, isn't it? Looking at people traveling in space, maybe you feel it's easy, but when we really get into it, I'm sure there will be a lot of things that are going on in our minds. But we should all learn to be courageous and brave against those things. And they went around the Earth 252 times, okay? They went around the Earth 252 times, 10.45 million kilometers. That might be beyond our comprehension, right? That might be beyond our understanding level. 10.45 million kilometers. When they went for 252 times around the Earth, it was 10.45 kilometers. I'm repeating these numbers, okay? I'm repeating these figures because it is important for you to understand, as well as it might even come for your examinations. I know we are not studying only for the sake of examinations, but this will also help you. And when you go to a higher level, when you sit for exams, this kind of figures would matter to you. And in her first space mission, the crew was a Japanese and a Ukrainian astronaut. That means 3 of them went together in her first mission. And they did a lot of experiments, okay? Experiments of pollinating plants. You know what is pollination, right? When a flower is blooming, the bees will come and suck the nectar, and then the bees would carry the pollen grains to the next flower or to the next plant, and then there are fruits. The plants can bear fruits because of this pollination. I'm sure you studied that in your science classes. I will not be elaborating on that. But they also tried to pollinate plants on space, okay? I repeat, they tried to pollinate plants on space because they want to have food. They want to grow plants and give food on space. Because it is also important for food growth. If human beings were to live, we talk of so many things that there might be life on space and so on. And so that was one of their project. And also they tried to test for making metal stronger. Making metal stronger is another experiment that they did, and to make faster computer chips. We talk of 3Gs, 4Gs, and 5Gs, right? So they also tried to experiment things like that. And all those projects cost $56 million. The payment that they got for these researches that I've mentioned here, pollinating plants, okay, to observe food growth in space, and also test for making strong metals stronger, and then faster computer chips. And for these works, they were paid $56 million. And later on, we will see that their spacecraft has met with an accident. I already told you from the beginning. And so these are the members. These are the crew members on board. They went together, okay? They went together, and this photo was taken before they left Earth. I'm sure they must be very excited. And when I say excited, it is not only about being happy, but there will be a lot of things going on their mind, because they know that they are also taking risk. And they also feel that they will come back with more researches that are successful. And they will not just be traveling to space for sightseeing or entertainment, isn't it? No one will travel to space for those things. And so they are set on a mission for some projects, and the thoughts that would be going on in their minds, you can imagine that, isn't it? The excitement, the fear, and also the worry that would accompany them. But this is how they were all set to travel to space for their mission. But unfortunately, on a Saturday night, let's read this. Columbia disaster shocked the world, and there was disbelief. There was a disaster that shocked the world, okay? The whole world, not only America or not only India, but the whole world was shocked because there was a disaster. And the town of Colonel spent sleepless nights. They were glued to their TV sets, hoping that the team had somehow survived. Now, you have not seen this with your own eyes when the news channels were broadcasting, but for the people who were watching, they just saw that the aircraft was in flames, okay, in fire. And so they're still wondering whether this team had survived or not. They know that there was an accident that took place. the accident had taken place, they saw that the spacecraft on which Kalpana Chawla and the team was traveling was already in fire. But people were still hoping. Nobody wants any bad things to happen to us, right? You don't want accidents to occur in your family. You don't want accidents to happen in your place. And the same thing was happening because she was born and brought up in the town of Karnal. They were just hoping. For the whole night, they were glued to their TV sets. That means they were not moving away from their TV. They were watching the news channels, okay? They were watching the news channels hoping, because people got to know that there was an accident, but they do not know whether the lives of these people, of these 7 people, were saved or not. They were just sitting, waiting and hoping. We say fingers crossed sometimes, isn't it? And so they were just waiting and hoping to hear news that the people had survived, or at least, if not all, some of them would have survived. They were just thinking of that, hoping of the good things to come. And here I've just brought a short phrase, a journalist, of how a journalist had written. You know who are journalists, right? A person who brings news to us are called journalists, isn't it? A journalist writes, you need to know everything from biology to astrophysics to aeronautical engineering. So I did not bring everything because I cannot write everything here in detail. But he writes about Kalpana Chawla. To become an astronaut, it is not easy, but she had the determination. She should be considered a hero. And as expected, we consider her to be a hero in our life, isn't it? We are discussing about her life story because we consider her to be a hero. So in order to be an astronaut, you cannot just read on one subject and go for that. For some other works, maybe a particular subject, the knowledge of a particular subject would be enough. But to become an astronaut, you have to know biology. I hope you know what is biology, right? In your science, there will be a biology portion. Astrophysics, aeronautical engineering, these are some things that you will learn only when you go to higher classes. But we know physics and chemistry even in our high school, isn't it? So in order to be an astronaut, these are some subjects that you all and we all have to know. And unless you have a good knowledge of all these subjects, it would be difficult for you to be an astronaut. You go to space, you cannot come back to your biology teacher and ask how that thing happened, isn't it? You are there and you have to work independently. The only people that you have around would be your crew, 5 to 6, 3 to 4, and you have to help each other on that. And as experts, you have to know about those subject matters very well, because you are the one experimenting. And you cannot, as I said, you cannot come back, you cannot turn back to people around you again, because everyone will be busy in their own field. And with just a few members in the crew, it will be difficult for you to keep asking on one another, right? And so her achievement is awe-inspiring. Awe means wonder. It's a surprise, isn't it? The achievement that she had, in spite of the very little support that she had. And then she had to break through. I've already told you that she had to go for engineering masters against her father's wishes. And so imagine of her going for further studies. There might be difficulties that have come in her way, but she still managed to go through all these odds and the struggles. And then her story has become an inspiration. That is why the journalist says that her achievement is awe-inspiring. It's inspiring for every one of us. See, I just brought 2 pictures again of how the accidents occurred, and this is how their spacecraft landed on Earth. Okay, after the accident, their spacecraft landed on Earth, so you can imagine whether they would survive or not. Everything has been turned to ash, smoke and fire, isn't it? So if their spacecraft has become like that, it would be difficult to hope that any one of them would be able to survive again. And her story is not just a story that we are discussing about, but this is included in the chapter because that can be used as an inspiration for each and every one of us. I gave the heading as inspiration for Indians, right? millions of young Indians inspired. Sometimes when we belong to a weaker group of society, or maybe your family is not very rich or is not very well educated, sometimes you feel insecure. You feel that you are not like others. We call that inferiority complex, isn't it? There would be inferiority complex, but for Kalpana Chawla, she had overcome all these things. There is no such thing that she had to face, okay? And she was just a girl from a small town, but she touched the skies. Touch does not mean literally going and touching with her hands, but she had reached a place where many people consider it to be impossible. A girl from a small town. Sometimes even in your school, you might have been bullied because you are from a weaker group or from a village which is not very well known. But when you face all these things, what you have to learn is it is not because of your village, but it is because of who you are. You want to take up a particular subject or you want to follow a certain dream. That is what we should all be encouraged. Kalpana was just from a very small town, but people from big cities did not go to US to study their engineering, neither did they go to space. If Kalpana had to be thinking in that way, she would not have achieved this. But because of her broad-mindedness, no matter whatever people say, you have a dream to follow. It is not their dreams. Why should you let other people shatter your dreams, isn't it? And so when she was on board once, okay, a message from Kalpana from abroad to students of her college in Chandigarh. That means she studied in Chandigarh college and she sent a message for the students in Chandigarh. They might be feeling that since we're from this kind of college, we may not be able to go to space or we may not have the opportunity to join NASA. There will be so many thoughts going on even in the minds of the students in that college, right? But Kalpana Chawla just sent a message, okay? The path from dreams to success does exist. May you have the vision to find it, the courage to get onto it. Wishing you a great journey. Many will follow her lead. So she passed on a message. That was not when she came to a convocation or not when she came to a gathering, okay, or not when she came to a school annual day. But she passed this message while on board. While she was on space, she encouraged the students of Chandigarh, the college where she studied. And when you have a dream, okay, you will always be successful if you have the vision, if you have the courage to follow that. That is one message that is very powerful for the students. They would be encouraged for sure. If you are losing hope in a certain field and somebody comes and tell you, you may find a particular subject difficult, maybe social sciences, science or whatever subject, you're finding it too difficult. But if someone comes and tell you that it is so and so, it is easy if you study this way, I'm sure that would be an encouragement for you. As a class 6 student, you will also have some particular difficult subjects, right? And even if you face this kind of things, when there is someone to guide and encourage you, you can always be lifted up again. So the same thing with the students in Chandigarh. Her message had been an inspiration to all of them. This is a news clip, okay, that I've given again. On the Saturday night, when the news about Columbia disaster broke, there was shock and disbelief. The town of Colonel spent a sleepless night as thousands of households stayed glued to their television sets in the hope that Kalpana and the crew had somehow survived. That is what the news published in the year 2003. And the picture that you see here, you might be wondering what this is. This is a debris, okay, that is from the accident that occurred, okay. So this is a debris that they found after some time. Debris means the pieces that are broken. You might not find everything all at once because it has blasted, right? But this is one thing that they found again. So another one, this is just an extra information. The reason why the spaceship or the spacecraft met with the accident is, it is not in your textbook, so I want you to look at this carefully. Loose piece of foam punctured in a hole. Extremely hot gases entered the wing during re-entry. Structural support was destroyed and the orbiter broke apart. These are the reasons why the accident of the spaceship happened, okay? An extra information I gave just because I want you to have more knowledge of it. You might be wondering why and who did. Was it an enemy that shoot? There will be so many things that will be going on in your mind. This is a failure that occurred in their spaceship, and that is why they met with this accident, okay? And now with this we come to the end of our story, but we have heard about how Kalpana Chawla studied. She might not have a very easy way in her studies, but she managed to make a name for herself and also for our country and the US. She represented US, but we all know that everyone knows that she was an Indian American woman, so she lifted up the name. Not only lifted up the name of the country, but she had become an inspiration for many young people, for many youngsters who might be in this field but losing hope because there were not many Indians or there were not many women. But there cannot be differentiation in gender. When you want to go for something, whether you are a boy or a girl, a lady or a man, you can always go for it. Once you have a determination to follow your dreams can always come to reality. And so I want all of you to take some inspiration from this, learn a lesson, and then carry forward. And not just getting inspired, but what you have to do is you have to start working from today itself. And with this, we end our class. Thank you so much for listening.